Lena Hart was just another aspiring podcaster searching for unique material when she stumbled across a nameless audio file buried in the depths of the internet. What began as research for her next episode quickly turned into something else, a recording that whispered her name, even though no one else should have known she was listening. Now every night brings new files, new voices, and the terrifying realization that her podcast isn't hers anymore. It belongs to something else. I never thought something as harmless as starting a podcast could unravel my life the way it did. It began as nothing more than a small passion project, a way to entertain myself during long, restless nights. I was fascinated by horror, the kind of fascination that made me stay awake until sunrise reading unsolved cases and urban legends buried deep in internet archives. One night, driven by boredom and that familiar itch to find something strange, I decided to dig through the kind of forgotten forums that looked like they had been touched in years. Most of it was junk, broken links, dead threads, and abandoned usernames, but then I found it. A post with no title, just a single file attached, labeled "Do Not Listen." The warning didn't scare me, it intrigued me. These kinds of dramatic labels were usually part of online creepypastas, nothing more. I convinced myself it was fake, maybe someone's attempt at creating a viral hoax. Still, I downloaded it, already imagining how I could turn it into content for my next episode. My listeners loved when I unearthed strange and obscure material, and this looked perfect. The file was small, only a couple of minutes long. When I played it, all I heard was static. It wasn't ordinary static, though it wasn't the fuzzy sound of an old TV or the faint crackle of a bad radio signal. This static felt alive, like it had weight, a low vibration that seemed to crawl through the headphones and into my skull. It lingered in my chest, humming against my heartbeat. I leaned closer to the screen, straining to hear something beyond the noise, and just when I was about to dismiss it, I caught it, a voice. It was so faint at first I thought it was my imagination, a slow, broken whisper pressed beneath the static, too muffled to understand. I replayed the file, turning the volume higher, and again, the voice was there. Each time I listened, it seemed to grow clearer, sharper, angrier. I must have replayed it a dozen times, obsessing over the words, until the final playback froze my computer. The screen locked, the audio glitched, and the static erupted louder than ever before. Then, cutting through the distortion, the voice screamed a single word. It was my name. I ripped the headphones off, heart hammering so hard I thought it might stop. The room was silent, my computer unresponsive, the file gone. For a long time, I just sat there in the glow of my monitor, convincing myself it was some bizarre trick. Maybe the file was programmed to scare whoever listened, inserting random names into the recording. That had to be it. There was no other explanation that made sense. But deep down, I couldn't shake the feeling that the voice had been waiting for me, specifically me. The sound of it lingered, a harsh echo that replayed in my head no matter how hard I tried to distract myself. Even when I closed my eyes, I could almost hear the static weaving through the silence of my apartment. I told myself it was just exhaustion, nothing more, and shut everything down for the night. But as I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, I began to wonder about the file's origin. Who posted it? Why had the forum thread been abandoned, wiped of any comments? I thought about going back, searching for clues, but the idea made my chest tighten. Some part of me already knew it wasn't just a coincidence. That whatever had spoken my name through the static had reached me for a reason. Sleep didn't come easily. Every creak of the walls, every shift of the floorboards sounded amplified in the silence. I kept replaying that final moment in my mind. The violent burst of static and the way the voice broke through it like someone tearing the fabric of reality itself. I finally drifted off sometime after 3, only to wake in the middle of the night with my skin prickling. The room was cold, unnaturally so, and when I glanced at the corner, I could swear I saw the faint red glow of my microphone's power light flicker once, even though it was unplugged. And for a brief, sickening second, I thought I heard my name again whispered from the darkness. I woke the next morning with the uneasy weight of the night still clinging to me. The memory of that whispered name, the static crawling under my skin, haunted me as I tried to convince myself it was nothing. I went about my day in a haze, but the image of that flickering microphone light wouldn't leave my head. By evening I found myself back at my desk, staring at the blank screen, half expecting the cursed file to reappear. It didn't. The thread where I'd found it was gone too, completely erased as if it had never existed. The only proof I had was the way my stomach twisted whenever I thought about it. Still, I was a podcaster, and podcasters turn strange experiences into content. That's what I told myself as I set up my equipment. My audience loved authentic horror, and nothing felt more authentic than this. I started recording an episode about cursed recordings, describing the file and the way it had unsettled me. I left out the part about it saying my name somehow that felt too personal, like admitting it would give the thing more power. I edited it quickly, uploaded it, and tried to forget about it. The response was immediate. My listeners loved it. The downloads spiked higher than ever before. Comments flooded in about how chilling it sounded, and people demanded more episodes like it. For the first time, I felt a little relieved. Maybe this was nothing more than exactly what I needed: good content, a boost for my channel. Maybe the whole experience was just the perfect coincidence. But that night, when I sat back down to edit my next recording, I noticed something strange. My voice wasn't alone on the track. Beneath my narration was another sound, faint at first, but there. I adjusted the audio levels, pulled the track apart, and my skin went cold. It wasn't feedback, and it wasn't static. It was breathing. Slow, ragged, uneven breathing, as though someone had been crouched close to the microphone, listening while I spoke. I deleted the track immediately, telling myself it must have been some background noise I hadn't noticed. But the next recording was the same. The breathing always returned, sometimes quiet, sometimes sharp, like it was growing closer to the microphone with every word I said. I couldn't explain it. My windows were shut, my apartment silent, and I always recorded alone. Yet the sound was there. I tried to shrug it off, but when I went to bed, my unease grew heavier. Sometime past midnight, I woke to a sound that made my heart nearly stop. My phone was playing something. The faint buzz of my own voice spilled into the darkness. I fumbled for it, unlocking the screen, and froze when I saw what was playing. It wasn't my last episode. It wasn't anything I had ever uploaded. It was a recording of me sleeping. The audio captured my shallow breaths, the restless turns of my body under the blankets, the shifting of fabric as I moved. And then, in the background, there it was again. The whisper. At first it was faint, buried under the sound of my sleep, but it grew clearer, sharper, until the words sank into my chest like ice. Keep talking. I stared at the screen, my pulse racing, my throat dry. There was no way I hadn't recorded myself sleeping. My phone was never near my microphone. I wanted to believe it was some kind of mistake, a glitch, or maybe even a prank I had forgotten setting up, but no, that wasn't possible. I knew it wasn't possible. I sat awake the rest of the night, every sound magnified in the silence. The hum of the refrigerator, the creaks of the building, the faint ticking of the clock, all of it felt unnatural, like the world around me was waiting for something. I kept replaying that recording in my head, the hiss of my own sleeping breath, and that soft, deliberate whisper demanding I continue. When the sun finally rose, I should have felt safer, but instead, I felt marked, like whatever had been in that static, whatever had spoken my name, had followed me out of the file and into my life. And now it wasn't content to simply whisper. It wanted me to go on, to keep recording, to let it be heard. And deep down, I was terrified that ignoring it would only make things worse. I thought taking a break would help. If I stayed away from the microphone, maybe the breathing would stop. Maybe the whispers would fade. For days I ignored my setup completely, leaving the equipment untouched on my desk. I didn't record, didn't edit, didn't even open my computer except for basic things. But silence didn't bring me peace. It only made the dread heavier, pressing against me with every hour that passed. The first sign that something was wrong came from my neighbors. One of them knocked on my door, complaining about late-night noise. They said they could hear voices, low, droning voices seeping through the walls around 3 in the morning. I didn't know what to tell them. At that hour I was either lying awake in silence or drifting into shallow, restless sleep. I certainly wasn't recording, but their words unsettled me because 3 a.m. had become the time I dreaded most. That was when the air in my apartment seemed to thicken, when shadows felt heavier, when every creak of the floorboards made me hold my breath. I finally checked my computer again, and that was when I discovered the files. Dozens of them, all marked with the same timestamp, 3:03 a.m. Each one was a recording I had never made. My microphone had turned on by itself, captured hours of silence, then saved the files without my knowledge. My hands shook as I opened the first one. At first it was quiet, just faint background hums. But then, minutes in, I heard the sound of scratching, sharp and irregular, like fingernails dragged across a wooden surface. I skipped further into the file and nearly dropped my headphones. Beneath the static, I could hear whispers. They weren't in English, not at first. They hissed and muttered in some broken language I didn't understand. But when I slowed one of the files down, reversed it, and replayed the sound, my blood turned to ice. The voice said, "We hear you." I tried another file. This time, after long stretches of silence, there was the distinct sound of footsteps. They circled the microphone, moving slowly, deliberately, as if someone were pacing my apartment while I wasn't there. The footsteps paused directly in front of the mic, then a voice, low and rasping, spoke again. "We are learning your words." I slammed the laptop shut and sat there in the dark, trembling. It couldn't be real. I had to be imagining it, letting paranoia twist random noise into meaning. But deep down I knew the truth. Those voices weren't random. They were speaking to me. They were growing clearer, more confident with every passing night. I told myself not to listen to any more files, but curiosity clawed at me, stronger than fear. Against my better judgment, I opened the last recording in the folder. This one was different from the rest. It didn't start with silence. It started with me, my own voice, broken, sobbing. I was crying, gasping between words, begging for something to stop. My throat tightened as I listened. The desperation in that voice was unmistakably, it was me. And yet, I had no memory of ever saying those words. I couldn't even remember crying like that. I shut the computer off and backed away from the desk, heart pounding so hard I thought I'd pass out. My mind scrambled for explanations, sleep-talking, stress, some bizarre form of sleepwalking, but none of it explained the clarity of the recordings, the footsteps, the whispers in languages I didn't know. None of it explained how I could be begging for mercy without ever remembering it. That night, I didn't dare try to sleep. I sat on the couch with every light on, staring at the door, waiting for something to happen. Hours passed, and just when I thought exhaustion might finally take me, I heard it, a faint tap-tap-tap from my desk. I turned my head slowly, and the blood drained from my face. The red light on my microphone was glowing. The glow of the microphone light felt like an open eye staring at me, unblinking, watching. I had unplugged it days ago, wrapped the cord tightly, and shoved it deep into the closet. Yet there it sat on my desk, powered on, its small red glow pulsing faintly as though it had a heartbeat of its own. I couldn't bring myself to move closer. I just sat frozen on the couch, every muscle tight, my breath shallow, my chest aching with the weight of silence pressing down around me. When morning came, the light was off. The microphone looked ordinary again, lifeless, harmless. But I knew better now. I didn't touch it. I couldn't. I spent the day moving around my apartment like a stranger in my own home, afraid of every corner, every shadow, every reflection. Even the windows seemed wrong, the glass showing me something off about my face when I passed too close, as if I wasn't the only thing looking back. I wanted to destroy the microphone, to smash it, but something in me resisted. A heavy thought kept me still, whispering that if I destroyed it, I would only make things worse. That maybe it wasn't just a piece of equipment anymore. That maybe it was a door, and once opened, doors can't simply be broken shut. The messages from my listeners began shortly after. They filled my inbox with confusion and fear. People told me they had heard things in my episodes I hadn't put there. They claimed the background noise wasn't just static, that whispers carried their own names, calling to them directly through their headphones. A few said they dreamed of me, and in those dreams I wasn't myself. I was sitting in a dark room slouched in front of a microphone, my fingers bleeding, my voice hollow, repeating words over and over that they couldn't understand. I scrolled through those messages in disbelief, but the further I read, the more my stomach tightened. It wasn't just one or two people. Dozens described the same visions, the same whispers. Some begged me to stop posting, said the episodes followed them into their homes, into their sleep, but others wanted more. They said they needed to hear it again, that the voices were pulling them back no matter how hard they resisted. When I finally worked up the courage to play back one of my most recent uploads, I felt the blood drain from my face. The episode didn't begin with my usual intro. Instead, it opened with a single drawn-out whisper. I couldn't mistake the words. It said, "Do not stop." My chest tightened as I sat in the dim glow of my monitor, headphones pressing into my ears, listening to something I had never recorded. The sound was sharp, commanding, not asking but demanding. My heart raced, and for the first time I truly wanted to shut it all down, my podcast, my equipment, every part of this nightmare. But that night, something happened that froze me in place. I had locked the closet door, certain I'd trapped the microphone inside again. I piled books and boxes in front of it, trying to bury it under weight and distance. Yet at some hour past midnight, I woke to the faintest scratching. It wasn't at my door or my window. It came from beneath me, from under the bed. Every muscle in my body locked as I lay perfectly still, listening. The sound was rhythmic, deliberate, dragging slowly across wood. My breath caught when I realized what it was. Something was moving under there, shifting against the floorboards. With trembling hands I reached for the lamp and switched it on. The glow filled the room, and for a moment there was only silence. Then, I forced myself to lean over the edge of the mattress, heart pounding so hard it hurt, and pulled up the blanket to peer beneath. There, tangled in its own cord like a nest of veins, lay my microphone. The closet was closed, untouched, yet the microphone rested inches from my face, its small red light glowing steadily, as if it had crawled out during the night to wait for me. I fell back, gasping, unable to scream, unable to breathe. I knew then that this thing wasn't just a piece of equipment anymore. It had a will, a presence, and it wanted me to keep going, to keep recording, to keep feeding it my voice. And I knew that if I didn't, it would find another way to speak. I thought about running, packing a bag, leaving the apartment behind, disappearing into some distant place where the signal of my own nightmare couldn't follow me. But some part of me knew it wouldn't matter. Whatever had seeped through that recording wasn't tied to this place, it was tied to me. Leaving would only drag it along, spreading it further, carrying the infection into new spaces, new walls, new shadows. Instead, I sat in front of my computer, staring at the microphone that now sat calmly on the desk again, as if it had never slithered from beneath my bed. I didn't touch it. I didn't even plug it in. I just stared at it until my vision blurred and my mind drifted into that half state between exhaustion and delirium. When I finally blinked, the monitor had lit up on its own, a single new email sitting in my inbox. No subject, no sender, just an attachment. I hesitated, but I knew there was no avoiding it. I opened it. The attachment was an audio file, and though every instinct screamed not to play it, my hand clicked before my brain could stop me. The file began without static, without delay. It was my voice. Speaking clearly, I was narrating everything. Every thought, every feeling, every fear I had carried since the night I first downloaded the cursed recording. Word for word, it retold the events as if I had been documenting them all along. Not just the moments I recorded for my podcast, but the private thoughts I never said aloud. The shameful panic, the way my stomach twisted, the sweat that clung to me in the dark. It was all there, spilling from my own mouth. I sat frozen, listening to myself recount things I had never spoken, until my narration reached the present moment, the moment of me listening to the file. And then it continued. It described the way my pulse hammered in my ears, the way my hand shook on the mouse, the way I kept glancing toward the microphone with dread. It was narrating me in real time, word by word, second by second, a reflection that knew my every thought as I thought it. I wanted to close it, but I couldn't move. My body was locked in place, every muscle trembling with the knowledge that the file was already ahead of me, already narrating what I would do next. Then came the voices. Not mine this time, but dozens of them, layered over each other in a broken chorus. They rose beneath my narration, speaking in unison, their tones cold and certain, their words cutting through me like knives. "We have your story now. Keep recording." The monitor went black. My computer powered down with a faint whine. Yet the microphone remained lit, its small red glow brighter than ever before. I sat in the reflection of the darkened screen, and that was when I saw it. Someone was standing behind me. The shape was blurry at first, like a smudge in the glass, but as my eyes focused, I saw the outline of a figure looming in the shadows. It had no features, just a stretched, distorted silhouette that leaned closer the longer I stared. My chest tightened, my vision swam, and I couldn't bring myself to turn around. The figure didn't move, but the red light of the microphone pulsed in rhythm with its presence, brighter each time it leaned closer in the reflection. And then, without a sound, my monitor flickered back to life. A recording program was open, already running, already capturing every shallow breath I took. The timer ticked forward second by second, proof that something had pressed record. I told myself to stop it, to rip the cord from the wall, but I couldn't. My hand refused to obey. My body paralyzed under the weight of the unseen figure looming behind me. All I could do was sit there, heart hammering, as the program captured everything. The screen showed the waveforms climbing higher, fuller, more crowded, as though something else was speaking alongside me, though the room was silent. The lines twisted, warped, bent into unnatural shapes as the audio stacked on itself, becoming unreadable, alien. My breath shuddered, and for a moment, I swore I heard my own future voice bleed through the static, sobbing, begging again for something to stop. Then, as suddenly as it had begun, the program froze. The waveform stopped moving. The file saved itself under a name I hadn't typed. One word, written in the same letters that had haunted me since the beginning. It was my name. Now the file sits there on my desktop, waiting. The red light on my microphone never turns off, and sometimes, when the room is quiet enough, I swear I can hear the voices whispering from inside it, urging me to keep going, promising that if I stop, the story won't end with me. I don't know if I should play the file. I don't know if I have a choice anymore. But I know one thing for certain: someone else will hear this story. Maybe you already are.